Hi everyone, this is Saket from Nexla. I'm very pleased to have here with me today Souvik Das, the Chief Technology Officer at Clearwater Analytics. Souvik, welcome. Great to have you here.
Hey, Saket. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me to the session.
Thanks, Souvik. So, Souvik, let's just start a little bit, telling the audience about you. You've had a very rich experience across a variety of industries in a technology leadership role. Would love to hear your journey to Clearwater and a little bit about Clearwater itself and what the company does.
Sure, absolutely. Happy to talk about it. So, as you said, Saket, I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Clearwater. What Clearwater does is we are an investment management lifecycle software development provider for all the institutional investors, whether they are insurance companies, whether they're asset managers, whether they're corporations or pensions or funds. We provide software so that they can manage the money that they invest in the market, whether they are trading, whether they are managing their portfolios, the risk or performance of the portfolio, or managing the portfolio through investment accounting or reporting. All of that needs software. And that's what Clearwater provides. So we lead with our platform. We have a pretty robust cloud-based platform, and we have several hundreds customers, actually 1,300 plus customers all over the globe that use us to manage their money. A little bit about myself. I've been in the industry close to 30 years. Always, I started my journey way back when as an engineer. And over the last almost 3 decades, just progressively moved in my career. Generally, I've been focused on fintech companies, whether it's payments, lending, payroll, and now investment management. I really like the fintech space because it gives a lot of scope to manage at scale all of the products and services that fintech needs. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And if I understand correctly, the the thing when we think about Clearwater and the work that you guys do over there is one which sees a lot of data, actually,
Yes.
right? So maybe you can share with us in an example of a customer and how that leads to a variety of data for you guys to work with as a tech platform.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We ingest data from several thousand data sources every day, and data comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes. We ingest data that is trading data, or that is market data, pricing information, or all kinds of asset classes. A lot of the data are sent to us through files or in CSV formats. Recently, because of the explosion of alternate asset classes like limited partners or derivatives and mortgage loans, we are ingesting tons and tons of data of unstructured nature, files as in PDF documents and stuff like that. So data really is our lifeblood, and we have a very sophisticated data management platform that is ingesting data at scale every day, cleaning the data, and then normalizing the data, and then sending it to downstream systems where all of the computations happen for our customers.
Yeah, that's an incredible challenge to solve, actually, right? And given your experience of it, you've been at PayPal, you've been at Capital One, you've
Yeah.
had a little bit of work in the healthcare industry as well. As you see the work happening today and the sort of diversity of data that you come across and the challenges, how would you relate that over time? How this has changed and evolved?
Yeah. I think what has happened, Saket, in my experience over the last few decades, there is, of course, an explosion of data that is um, coming to the forefront in terms of digitization. All of these data at some point of time resided in some sort of analog format, but as the world has transformed and adopted digital technologies, these data that was before in analog formats and have been migrated into digital formats. And then so what naturally happens is data always flows from one system to another. And systems have been using data, they have been sending data back and forth, but interoperability of data standards has not evolved.
Mhm.
Or what I would say is companies or systems that emit data, they typically, at least in my experience, don't send data aligning themselves to many interoperable data formats that are out there. And therefore, what happens is each system that ingests data has to necessarily manage the data so that their computation systems can use the data in the format that they expect. So a lot of time, energy, calories is spent in managing data, transforming data, cleaning a data, because data almost always does not come in the way that one would expect. So there's a lot of energy that is spent,
Yeah.
time, money, resources are spent in just getting data to a point where perhaps it can be used for computation purposes downstream. That's one thing that I've seen over the years. The other thing I would say is data itself has emerged into various different shapes and sizes. So gone are the days where you can only expect CSV file formats. Today we expect files in PDF formats or various other classes of data. At some point of time, I was having a conversation with another person. Particularly if you are not in perhaps fintech, but if you're in entertainment space, data comes in other file formats, whether it's audio, video, or other such file formats. So explosion of data, explosion of different types of data. And so data management and therefore tools to manage data has to evolve and has had to evolve. And in our industry, particularly whether it's payments, whether it's lending, and now in investment management, we are also seeing similar trends, explosion of data and explosion of different types of data that we have to manage on our platform.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it seems like if we think about data, the three V's of variety, volume, and velocity,
Yep,
it's not the volume, it's not the velocity, it's the variety that is
yep,
creating a level of complexity that
yes,
wasn't maybe there before, right? Is that fair?
yes. That is very well said. Yes, exactly right. Yep,
Okay.
yep.
And if I think about the calorie sort of thing that you're talking about, is very interesting. As a CTO, your mandate is broad, right? It's across application, across data, across everything, technology. So, in terms of your calorie count, where is data coming into that? Or the data side coming into that mix?
Yeah, I think it's a huge expense, both in time, money,
Mhm.
and resourcing, frankly, and therefore resourcing, frankly, because as I said, Clearwater does not work if we do not get the right data every time, and frankly, we
Mhm.
need the data to provide all of the computation so that we can then feed data back to our client systems on time so that they can use the data for trading the next day. So we are always on the clock a little bit, right? Every day, at the end of every day, and sometimes throughout the day, we get massive volumes of data. We have to clean the data, manage the data, master the data, and compute the data on top of it, and then send the data back so that our clients can use the data for their trading purposes, for their performance analysis, risk analysis, and stuff like that. So it's a constant cycle that we are on. And because we are very fortunate to have a business that is constantly growing over the last few years, the size and scale of data, and frankly, as I said, the shape of data is also changing. So we are spending a lot of time in scaling our systems. Every single year, we spend significant amount of time scaling the systems, modernizing the systems. So we are always looking for tools and technologies that can help us doing that. It is a huge amount of investment that we put into data.
Okay. On your website, Savik, I saw like quotes from uh, JP Morgan, Snowflake, Transamerica. I presume these are, probably customers of Clearwater's technology. Once you have sort of ingested that data in PDFs and Excel and APIs and whatnot and mastered and all that stuff, what is the wow that happens for that customer? Like, where is the aha coming because of all the hard work you guys are doing on data?
Yeah. So if you think about our customers, right, what do our customers they need? They need timely, accurate, and complete data. So let's take any customer. So let's say, a customer that is using our systems to trade on a daily basis. So they trade hundreds of millions of dollars, sometimes billions of dollars every day. And the trades come to our system through some kind of a file exchange or sometimes events. And then what happens is we feed it through our system. We have to run our risk and performance computation engine. We have to run our accounting engine. We have to run so many other computes on top of it. And then outside of that compute, we then feed the data back to our customers. And what do they do with that data? So if you're a portfolio manager or if you're a trader in a large asset manager, you need to use that data to understand your cash, your positions, and your balances so that you can use that data to trade the next day. So that's the wow that we do. Every
Mhm.
day at the beginning of the day, a customer, like a trader, comes in and is able to get all of the data that he or she needs to perform their own business processes. That's the trading or portfolio manager persona. Now,
Mhm.
on the investment accounting side, before Clearwater came into existence, a lot of the investment accountants, they used to get data at the end of every month. So when they do monthly lockdowns,
Mhm.
because they have to provide reports to their regulatory agencies, whether state, local, or federal agencies, for tax purposes, for other regulatory reporting purposes. It was a huge amount of effort at the end of every month to get all of the data, make sense out of the data, and create reports out of the data. Well, with Clearwater, we have the ability, and we do that every day, to provide to the investment accountants timely, accurate data and complete data every single day. So they
Mhm.
don't have to wait till the end of the month. They can start their business processes and workflows for lockdown every single day if they want to. If not, every so often that they want to. So that's really the wow that we provide to our customers.
Mhm. Wow, I mean, it is indeed a wow. I mean, it's a high stakes data, right?
Yes.
And you're talking about going from something that was happening monthly to that could be happening daily or maybe even real time.
Yeah.
And I can relate, somewhat because of the fact that my last company was in advertising technology, and data
Mm.
volumes were massive,
Yeah.
and data was flowing across many entities, but they were so massive that we would, when it comes to a reconciled report of sorts of, how much ads were shown and what was spent
Yeah.
and so on, we're okay to tolerate 5% error because it's just so hard to run these things at scale and not miss a signal.
Hmm.
But when I think about your business, there is zero tolerance, is what I'm hearing, right? I mean,
Yes.
there's
We
no
have
room
to be.
for that kind of thing. So it's an incredibly high SLA. So
Yes.
yeah, I mean,
No, that's exactly right. I mean, it's accounting data. So, you just have to be penny perfect. And in some
yeah.
cases, depending on the customers, they do trading in large lots, large volumes. Some of our APAC customers, because of the way their assets are constructed or their portfolios are constructed, I'm sorry, depending on the asset classes, we actually have to be precise up to the fourth or fifth decimal place. And
Mhm.
that's the level of accuracy that we do for some of our customers. And then, that's on the investment accounting side. And on the trading side, as I said, you have to provide them data every single day. So that they know what their balances are, what their positions are, so that they can trade the next day. So it's really very short turnaround cycle with a
Yeah.
high accuracy demand.
Incredible. That's amazing technology you have built here at Clearwater, right? And talking about amazing technology and maybe switching gears a bit, let's
Sure.
chat a little bit about generative AI, right?
Yeah.
And having known about you and your team, I believe that you have been a very, very early adopter of generative AI technologies as they started to come a couple of years back, right? So I'd love for you to share like how you guys are applying generative AI, and now that we understand what problems you're solving, maybe relate that a little bit. Um,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So when this technology emerged upon us, suppose last year, early to mid last
yeah.
year, what we decided, our CEO had the foresight to basically say, hey, look, this is a technology that can really change what we are doing and can be not only massively transformational for the company, but frankly transformational to all our industry, to our entire industry. So what we decided was we basically pulled a team together. We brought a technology leader who was leading a pretty impactful program on a separate track. We basically hand tapped that person and said that, hey, you now go focus on this 100% of the time. And then we built a team around this person, and we basically said, hey, go figure out what you want to go and do, what problems you want to go and solve using generative AI technology. Now, as you've pointed out, Saket, we have to be very careful about using this technology because we cannot hallucinate, we cannot be
Yeah.
wrong. Data accuracy is super important for us, for our customers. So we kind of made an early decision to use very, very rigorous guardrails um, while using the technology. So we actually used models, we trained the models through RAG, and we explicitly, through prompt engineering, really, really constrained the outputs of the models. And then we had a very robust audit control. And then what we decided was if the audit control does not pass a certain threshold, we would not release the product out into the wild. So those were some of the guardrails that we
Mhm.
use. And looking back, I think those were the right decisions for us, given the business workflows that our customer demands from our systems.
Yeah, no, I think 100% agree with you. I mean, generative AI is powerful technology. It's one of those where if you were to ask the same question three times, you probably get three slightly different answers, right? So that is not acceptable in many
Yeah.
enterprise use cases, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it totally makes sense that you put all those guardrails around to ensure the quality. And I think that almost every technology leader I talk to tells me that going to production is an incredibly hard challenge.
Mhm.
So maybe if you can share a little bit about that, like you started this like really early in the cycle, and in the industry has gone from prompt engineering to naive RAG to advanced RAG to now agentic RAG and all that stuff. So how did you, what technology maturity did you see happen? And you probably had to build a lot. So if you
Yes.
can share a little bit about how you went at the journey, and then how are you seeing this fast moving tech space
Yes.
that you are adopting into.
Sure, sure. And look, I mean, I fully recognize that this has been an incredible journey for us. And look, we probably have learned a lot, and we probably have done quite a bit. May have made a lot of mistakes in the early days, and the technology itself has emerged and evolved quite rapidly. Um, what have we done? Let's just talk a little bit about what we have done. So what we've built is we've built a platform internally that abstracts away the underlying large language model providers, whether it's OpenAI is models, or Meta's models, Llama's, or Claude's models, or Anthropic's models, or any other sort of large language model providers. And the reason we did that early on was we recognized that these large language model providers would evolve over a period of time, and they'll have different price performance characteristics.
Mhm.
And we need to have the flexibility, depending on our business use case and workflows, to pick and choose which model we would use for a certain workflow or a business use
Yeah.
case. So we decided that early on. So we've created a platform that abstracts away the large language model provider. And then on top of that, we have the ability to actually use data and send context through our query system that we want to the large language provider. And we use a privately encapsulated version of all of these large language model providers. So the data that we send, the customer's data that we send to them, does not leave that VPC, and they come back to us and they delete so, those large language model providers do not host our customers' data. So there is no data leakage per se
Mhm.
from our environments or our private environments to the public internet. So we've made sure very carefully from a contract perspective, legal contract perspective, those things exist, those constructs exist. And then from a build perspective, what we have done is, I'll talk about a couple different things. We have used what is now today called a chatbot or co-pilot, or however you want to call it, capabilities where you can send a query to this system that we have built, and it is able to then query on behalf of the customer and then pull specific data elements from the customer and then generate a response to the customer. Because oftentimes customers ask us questions like, hey, why is a particular book yield this value? Why is your report showing us this value in the book yield, whereas our report shows us something else? So we now then need to go and look into the data of the customer that we have and then construct a appropriate response. So that's something that we do. And that itself took a little bit of time to figure out the mechanics of getting that, because it's not really only a knowledge based query per se. It's what we call data aware query.
Hmm.
And so some of
Yep.
those data aware responses, questions, and therefore responses are hard to build because you have to get to the right data, you have to construct the right response using the LLM, and then send that back. So we now have the wiring done for a few use cases. We are continuously working on a lot more use cases to help solve our customer support queries. That's on the customer support side. Parallelly, what we've done is we've built the same technology so that our internal support personnel can leverage the internal technology, and can then respond to queries faster. Sometimes customers are using the queries directly. Sometimes our operations people, our customer support people are using those so that they're able to respond questions faster. So that's on the CS side of the house. And then on the top line revenue side of the house, we have built a few products which are a combination of agents or digital virtual agents, like you said. We have the capability where we have trained these agents into very, very narrow domains. So we do a lot of work in accounting, for example, or compliance, for example. So we now have built agents that are deeply trained in those narrow domains. And those agents can communicate with each other. So if a customer query comes in that requires an accounting agent to communicate to a compliance agent, we now have built the technology to do that. On top of that, what we have built is a what we call a studio and a lounge. So a
Hmm.
customer can now go and log into the lounge and pick and choose what agents they want to work with. And if they don't like an agent, or if that agent doesn't fit their purpose, they can actually create their own agent. So we've built a studio
Uh-huh.
where they can create their own agents, and they can provide guardrails to their agent and name the agent. So we've had entire studio built for that. And they can then construct a workflow where their built agents can communicate with each other and solve their own unique customer problems. So that's what we have done. We have launched it. We are experimenting that with a handful of customers. We have got tremendous, excitement. We just finished our annual conference that we do, which we call Clearwater Connect in Boise in September, and we got a tremendous amount of excitement from a whole lot of customers. So we have a few client design partners that we are using to beta test and proof point it before we go full bright, full launch on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise that there's so much excitement in the customer base when you had already wowed them with the data sort of technology that you had built and solved that sort of regulatory and other sort of accounting and other challenges, and here you are bringing in latest of generative AI and solving these problems in a having an agent lounge where you can talk to agents and all that
Yes.
stuff. So this is incredibly innovative. And may I say that in the description you shared with me, I heard at least 10 different startup ideas that people are chasing, and you have actually gone ahead and built that from you know um, model routing that you started with, to the guardrails part of it, to an agent studio, to many other pieces. So it's incredible amount of innovation that you guys have built in the last year and a half. So maybe that brings me to the question that if other technology leaders that are aspiring to innovate in this space, how would you guide them? Like, how should they think about building a Gen AI team? Like, what does it take? I mean, you tapped into one of your top engineers and a team behind that, but how would you guide them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, look, this is a great question, Saket. What I would say, look, it is very dependent on a particular company's problem sets that they're trying to solve, right? So I don't know that one size fits all strategy would work, but some
Mhm.
principles may work across the board. And happy to talk about that a little bit. I think it's incredibly important to ring fence a team and nominate a leader who would run this program almost on a dedicated basis, right? Oftentimes, what enterprises do is they kind of dip their toes into it and say, "You
Yeah,
do this as well as that," and in our experience, the fact we basically pulled not only the leader but also a decent sized team and completely dedicated them to this effort was hugely beneficial. The innovation and this, frankly, the speed of innovation that we were able to get done. And it's not to say that we didn't make mistakes. Of course we
yeah,
did, because that's just part of the innovation cycle. Um, but I really do firmly believe that if we did not have a dedicated team working on this, then it would not have made as much progress as we have done so far. And then when we go and talk to customers, they're also excited to partner with us because they see the innovation, they see the dedication that Clearwater is putting, and the amount in money and resourcing that Clearwater is putting. So they believe then that there is really, we are putting money where our mouth is, and it's just
yeah,
not empty words. So it really helps. That the other thing I would say is, of course, be really aware of the business problems that we are trying to solve, because I think sometimes technologists fall in love with the technology, and
oh yeah,
they tend to build for the sake of building it. And
yeah,
right at the outset, we were very, very careful and mindful about, okay, what business problem are we trying to solve for? And that's really important, because oftentimes, you put like 25, 30, 50, or 40, whatever the number is, engineers and product people, they go off in the in the boonies and kind of build for the sake
yeah.
of building. And I mean, that is not how we did this work. So but
Mhm.
those probably would be the one or two things that I would say. But
Yeah,
then being aware of customer problems, solving for customers, keeping their problems front and center would be super
yeah.
beneficial, I feel.
And it's a hard decision in terms of the product management part of it, like what to build, how to serve the customer when you're dealing with technology which is so cutting edge
Yes,
that you don't even know exactly the capabilities of the technology unless you go, put some
yes.
code in there and try to test it out, right? And as you discover the limitations or the capabilities, you'll come up with the actual business ideas to go build, right? So it's
That's
quite
right.
important.
That's 100% right. And oftentimes, what happens in corporations or enterprises, I feel like there is a little bit of a fear of failure. So people,
Hmm.
and in our experience, particularly with this team, what we said was we kind of unleashed them. And because of this technology that
Yeah,
is, as you rightly pointed out, it's so new and unknown, particularly in the enterprise space. You could see a lot of innovation come in the consumer space, of course. Um, uh, we really unleashed them a little bit, and we basically said, like, look,
yeah,
don't worry about mistakes. You will make mistakes, but just be forward thinking, I suppose, and work
yeah,
with customers. Don't go in a sideways and do it on your own. And so just work with customers, talk to customers, use them as client design partners, and those were some good guardrails or guidelines that we used, I think.
yeah, yeah. I think understanding that mistakes happen and then you work through them is sort of core to innovation. And
Yes.
anybody who was afraid of making mistakes is not innovating. So
Yeah, it's not
I think that's
innovative.
absolutely the right culture. There's a
Yeah.
culture aspect to working with generative AI that you are bringing in as a leader to enable this team. And if I may ask, like when you get started like this, like is it like it's a two pizza team of 10x engineers? Is it all data scientists, or is it a lot of data engineers, software engineers? Like what is that sort of mix that you found is the right one, going at a problem like this?
Yeah, we had a mix of all of that. So we had
Hmm.
data scientists, we had data engineers, we had software engineers, we had a mix of all of it. And truth be told, everybody was kind of doing everything. The data science, except the data science piece, I
Yeah.
suppose that was a little bit different. But other than that, there's no formal distinction of, hey, you
Hmm.
can only do this. Or it was true startup mentality, true startup culture. And I think
Yeah.
that really helps. And frankly, what we've also found, Saket, is because this is so new and energizing, I think people were willing to do the additional work. People were willing to spend the nights and weekends because they loved the promise of the technology and the problem solving of it. So,
Yeah.
We were
Okay.
extremely fortunate and lucky in that.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I have seen and heard from people and observed myself is that, um, unlike other AI initiatives, this is not a pure play data science,
Yes.
sort of thing. It's a lot of engineering because you are
Yes.
able to take models that are pretty sophisticated. You built a routing layer, so you can actually take advantage of multiple models. You may
Yeah.
fine tune some of those as you did, but the bulk of the work is not a
Yes.
traditional AI project, right? Is that fair?
Yes, that's 100% right. Yes, that's 100%. Because that work has been outsourced to the model providers.
Hmm.
So we are leveraging the work and frankly the billions and billions of dollars of
Yeah.
uh, cost that has gone into training the models. And so I think we as enterprise app builders are extremely fortunate that someone else is investing in that and making those models, like you said, more and more and better, and we are
Yeah.
getting the benefits of that. I do
Yeah.
think, just from a stepping back from what we did specifically, just talking about the industry, I think I really do believe that there is a case to be made over the next, perhaps even now and over the next few years, to build small language models that are industry
Hmm.
specific
Yeah.
and targeted and niche, right? Because the cost of training these large language models and all of that is extremely huge, as you know. And I think there is a case to be made that if there were small language models available for our domain, we would use them today,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So anyway, so I do think that's where the
Right.
world has to go.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great insight, and the evolution of our own understanding of generative AI and the models is kind of, leading to that. But for any, entrepreneurs or anybody who's looking to innovate, I mean, that's a great piece of advice, is to think about where is it going next, and how domain-specific small language models might be, an effective place to solve problems in a given, vertical or a space. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I think
yeah,
appreciate really that insight. Uh, when and talking about innovation and the time frame of innovation, right, and where you're seeing things go, um, you know we all know that it's innovation itself seems somewhat slow in 3 months. You want to get something done, it's taking months to get done, but it's pretty fast in a 3-year time frame, right? So when you are looking at maybe the big challenges that you thought were the key ones, like maybe 5 years ago or something, um, which ones do you feel like have been solved like really well? And maybe then we can fast forward, look how we think about the next 5 years, right?
yeah. I think if I think about what the public cloud providers have done, where
Mhm.
they have essentially shortened the provisioning cycle. Because I used to live in a world where you had to predict a year or so out in advance what your load profile is going to be. So there was a purchase cycle, purchase provisioning cycle, and so capacity planning was a big thing in my the
Yeah.
first decade perhaps of work. Today I don't think about that anymore, because that thing has been solved by someone else, particularly these public cloud service providers, and that frankly is a huge benefit to us, because it just helps in speed of acceleration and time to market for us. We don't think about capacity planning a year in advance or things like that. So that, I think, for business application developers like Clearwater and many other such players, is a huge advantage. Uh, I think the ability to um, deploy fast services through all of the different tools that are available today onto cloud services is massively advantageous from a speed of time to market, time to value perspective. Of course, we have to figure out what is the right thing to build, and that sometimes is the hard nut to crack in
Yeah.
terms of product market fit and business revenue and all of that. But the infrastructure, the tooling has been so much advanced. It's just from, I suppose, my first decade in the industry. It's just incredible to see that transformation over the last 5, 10 plus years. That has really helped. I would also think that you know, um, when an engineer thinks of building software today, so much of tooling and components are available that an engineer really needs to oftentimes think about the business use cases that he or she solves for. Oftentimes you don't have to build a queuing system or a messaging platform, or there are so many components that are ready made, particularly in cloud
Yeah.
ecosystems, that are available to you. So really the work left for an engineer in a business application context is, okay, what is the business use case that I am
Yeah.
going to build for and solve for? And so, therefore, the time to value has massively increased, in my opinion, which was not the case a decade plus or decade and a half plus, I think.
Yeah, yeah. No, very true. I think the platforming of the layers,
Yes,
and each layer that you platform kind of gets you closer to the business value, and the less work that you have to do, right? So the networking, then the cloud infrastructure, and then I would say the data warehouses and the cloud.
yes,
All
yes,
of that becomes the platforming that then you go to generative AI. Is kind of closer to the application. That's where the innovation is happening. Um,
yes.
so I'm curious, actually, your thoughts on the data um, stack, the data platforming, and its role in making that Gen AI thing scale. And then at someday, that will become a platform, right? And we'll go above that. But today, that's kind of where we are at the junction of a stable cloud infrastructure, a stable warehouse infrastructure, trying to crack into these customer-friendly use cases. Where do you see the need for data and the cleanliness of data, the reliability of it, and all of that stuff playing a role in achieving that goal? Um,
I think that's a really, really good question, Saket, because if I step back and look at the amount of energy that we spend in the data platform layer,
mhm,
it's just incredible. And I'd much rather be able to use a tool or a set of tools that are highly configurable, highly customizable for our business needs. Because look, every enterprise is different, and data comes at enterprises in all kinds of shapes and sizes. And so, if there is a tool or a set of tools that we could use out of the box that does 50, 60, 70% of what our engineers do and can be leveraged as a platform, and therefore I can shift those dollars really to more what I would call as business, in the business layer or business application building, then I think that would be, in my opinion, a huge, huge plus for
yeah,
us.
yeah,
And I mean, it's really a hard problem. It is not an easy problem because there are so many data providers and so many different formats and shapes and sizes and quality of data and all of that. And I really do think that companies like your company, Nextfly, and others have a unique opportunity to just platformish, be a platform of that size and scale that application developers like Clearwater can use data platforms like yours to
mhm,
leverage that. And that, I think, would be a massive, massive boost. And I think that would unlock a huge TAM for you all because everybody deals with data.
yeah, yeah.
Everybody needs data. So I think that's something that I'm super excited and looking forward to, frankly.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, we've been that part of the data platform within the Clearwater ecosystem, and we've been extremely proud of the work we have been doing there. And ultimately, I feel that again, as we build into the layers of this thing, I think what you're alluding to is a little bit of the culture aspect of it as well. You've been at, again, PayPal, Capital One, much bigger companies. The culture aspect being, as an engineer, when do you want to actually build something, and when do you want to actually take an existing
Yes.
piece of technology and build what is the layer above that, right? And that is a
Yes.
key decision to be made by the engineer, by the product manager, by that team, to see where that real customer value is being generated. Is that fair to say?
I think that's 100% true. In my opinion, starting gate, my position is, look, I only want to build things that are core IP for us.
Hmm.
Things that are not core IP for us, I would much rather, because there are others who are spending their core IP to platform that and make it better, fit and finish, size, scale, etc. And I would much rather leverage their expertise and buy or partner, but I would build what is core IP for us because
Yeah,
that can only be done by us. That cannot be done
Oh
by
yeah.
others. So that's,
Yeah.
I'm really a firm believer in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, but then, if and when you make the choice, like you made with Nextlight, it becomes really important for the platform to be truly enterprise grade, because you're serving
Yes.
that customer with real financial outcomes relying
Yes.
on your technology. So anything that you encapsulate as part of your solution has to significantly exceed in terms of what you might have had before or anything like that to be worthwhile, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, you know, time permitting, let me see if I can get two questions more with you. One is that maybe what has surprised you about technology in the past year or 2 years?
Oh wow, that's a really interesting question. Honestly, Saket, I think look, both you and I have been in this industry for a while, so we've seen a lot of different things. I am surprised about the explosion of generative AI related workloads, and frankly, what it has done to infrastructure providers like perhaps the cloud providers or the large language model providers, or frankly, even further down the stack, silicon providers. And frankly, the amount of investment dollars that has gone in across all layers of that stack has been quite stunning to see.
Mhm.
And particularly if you think about some of these hyperscalers now actually buying or thinking about buying nuclear reactors and nuclear power plants to provide power to their data centers. It's just
True.
astonishing to see the transformation that this piece of technology has created. So it's actually quite exciting to see what's happening in all of that layers of the stack.
Yeah. Yeah. And is there maybe a piece of innovation that you're hoping for in the coming year or two from your position, from the products and solutions you're building? Like, and you've done a lot of innovation, Gen AI space specifically, right? From,
Yeah,
which has not yet been platformed sufficiently, I guess. But
yeah.
anything that you're hoping for that comes up?
Yeah, I think, look, as I look forward to, it's hard to predict the future, of course, but
Yeah.
one thing that I would love to see is, how can engineers use the generative AI technology in their own product construction in a much more
Mhm.
effective and productive way?
Yeah.
And we are looking at tools in that area all the time. And we've experimented, frankly, with a couple of different tools, and we are very hopeful and bullish about that. But I'd love to see or work in a world where, a lot of this code is auto-generated, or, there are systems or tools in place where someone is able to write a specification, and there's tools that actually creates code right out of the specifications. And then there's, of course, human testing and verification that has to happen. But a lot of the time today is spent in, okay, back and forth between spec writers and tech engineers, and then hand construction of code. If a lot of that code is fairly templated, I feel,
Yeah.
and if there are sort of what I would call tooling middleware, we are all used to application stack middleware, right?
Mhm.
Um, if there are tooling middleware that can bridge the requirements gathering phase and the coding phase in a highly automated way, that would be an exciting thing. And I also think, maybe one last thing is, all enterprises, I suppose, including ours, have tons and tons of code that have reached perhaps their scaling constraint or end of life constraint, or however you want to call it. And there is always a need. The larger enterprises almost always have a need for modernizing their technology stack. And people in my seat think a lot about that, and how we can make it more efficient, how we can modernize our tech stack, um, and do it in a much more efficient way and fast. If there are technologies that can, perhaps some tooling again, that can use generative AI and solve that problem, or at least
Yeah.
minimize the amount of time and resources that are spent to modernize existing technology stack, that would be awesome.
Yeah, yeah. No, I was just at a conference where somebody mentioned how they're using generative AI to document COBOL code, because it's so old. Hardly anybody, who worked on it is around working on that. And yeah, I mean, even documenting that code, and I think generative AI's ability to read through that, understand it, and convert that is incredible. So definitely, the tooling side of the world is a great place. Do you want to throw in a 2025 prediction or two, Savik,
Oh
before we
wow.
wrap up? I mean, we are
I
coming to the end of the year, right? I mean,
yeah.
November, come on, like it's almost, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I don't have any crystal ball, and I don't think. But I do really think that, like you said, in the generative AI ecosystem,
mhm.
we are going to see incredible amounts of innovation. Um, and I think for the first time, I shouldn't say for the first time, but I think we will see a lot of tooling that actually helps to make engineering, software engineering, much more efficient and effective. I think there is a case to be made there. So, and I know there's a bunch of startups that are already doing that or thinking about that, like you said. That is perhaps the one exciting thing that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm 100% aligned with you on that. I mean, there's incredible amount of work we have done in applying generative AI to data engineering at different stages of it. From converting to a common data model to generating a transform to documenting data sets and stuff like that. And then, of course, when it comes to there's a lot of platform to be built, which is kind of where Nextla has been playing a role in those designing and building rack pipelines. I think you guys started when the technology tools were very, very green, and then uh, as more and more people try to adopt Gen AI, there is a need to build that platform so we can move faster, right? So
Yeah.
incredible conversation with you, Savik. Always love diving deep with you on these topics. You bring such a wealth of knowledge and experience, and a very forward thinking way of building an org and a culture, I think, where you have really fostered high speed innovation. So amazing work you're doing. I'm thankful for you for sharing that all that experience with me and the audience here today. Okay.
Thank you very much, Saket. It was wonderful talking to you as always. I think you guys are in the forefront of building something amazing as part of your journey, and I am incredibly happy and excited for your future. And this was a great conversation. Let's do it some other time again.
Yeah, absolutely. What a fun way to wrap the weekend, and
Yes.
think about new things that will come in 2025. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you,
Take
Savik.
care. Bye
Take
bye.
care. Bye.